Very warm welcome to everyone to this webinar where we are presenting the cooperation opportunities for improved integration across SDG6. Together with me, we have a number of speakers from SIWI, from UNICEF, from UNDP, who are the leading authors of this UN Water publication, but we have also invited some colleagues from FAO and from the government of Comoros and from GWP to present some case studies and to share with us their experience on this integration across SDG6. The agenda for today's meeting is here. We will have the introduction from Ms. Marianne Helen from UNDP, followed by the presentation of the report by the team leaders from SIWI, Robin Ward, who is currently working with UNICEF, but at the time of writing the report, he was working with SIWI, and Alejandro Jimenez. We will have 4 case studies. One is share experiences from the East Asia Pacific region from UNICEF, and precisely from the recent session on water resource management and WASH at the WASH Futures conference in Australia. After that, we will have a case study from Comoros, from Said Mohamed Nasur from the government of Comoros, from the Ministry of Water, and the water roadmaps will be presented by Virginie Gillette from FAO. After that, we will have a presentation from Colin Heron on WASH and WRM integration, putting theory into practice, followed by a panel discussion among the different speakers and the closing remarks from Farai Tunhuma from UNICEF. So without further delay, I would like to ask Marianne Helen to do the introduction, opening remarks, and explain you why we are here today and why we have developed this document. Marianne, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, and good morning, good evening, good afternoon to everyone. Also, we can have the slide. Okay. So this is it's a really great honor to be with you. My name is Marianne Helen, as mentioned, Senior Water Advisor with the UNDP, United Nations Development Program, and I'm actually connecting from Stockholm at the offices of Stockholm International Water Institute. Great to be here with you. This is, as mentioned by Jorge, this is an initiative under the auspices of UN Water. And UN Water, as you all know, is the coordinating mechanism for the United Nations work on water management and sanitation. And within UN Water, there was, it came up the need to work more effectively or support the national level or country level engagement. So UNDP and UNICEF were tasked to lead a task force on country level engagement and initially to develop a strategy for how UN Water could be better at supporting that level, and it resulted in an offer to the United Nations country teams and the UN resident coordinators for how to come together and deliver as one in terms of supporting water policy making and coordination at the local level. And there also, above all, I think we're striving to really make sure to support government efforts and leadership in the coordination. And also we have in this task force, we have also now have the co-leadership of FAO, who will also be presenting the national water roadmaps idea, which is also another mechanism to support that national coherent thinking and inclusive processes for policy making at the country level. So this is a rolling task force and quest by UN Water's work. Also, when starting this, it was several years back that we had these discussions about what's happening at the national level and what are the issues. And one thing that came out very early was the issue of policy of fragmentation and even a division of responsibilities between WASH, water and sanitation and hygiene service provisioning, and the water resources management, which is more engaging in the long-term sustainability of sources and the effects of society's use and need for protecting water resources. A lot of times these different objectives are instituted under different bodies at the international, both international and national level, and which is all very fine. But sometimes there are opportunities to work together coherently. They might be missed. Even actually, for example, the more recent survey of the Water Policy Group, listening to water leaders, also identified fragmentation at the national level as one of the key obstacles for progressing on improving, achieving the Sustainable Development Goal 6. So anyway, this was an issue, and so UNICEF and UNDP, we have together have a long-standing partnership with SIWI, the Stockholm International Water Institute. It's called the Accountability for Sustainability, working a lot on the sort of governance mechanisms and relations at the country and local level and how this can support achieving water security for all, in a sense. So through this partnership, we engaged SIWI to make a study on what are the cooperation mechanisms, what are the opportunities for bridging this fragmentation that we see on the ground. So that is, of course, now we are very glad today to have the results of this study, including 18 different cooperation areas with opportunities for engaging more coherently around WASH and water resources management. One thing I think is important to know, as noted in this study or in the report, is that we all need to focus on our mandates and our specialty areas, the things we need to do. But while going about our work, we need to also make sure we have that vision, the higher vision, to understand and acknowledge which is the higher level goal that we are working towards. Sometimes that might change, and also we need to relate to those other actors to make sure that what we do in our specific areas contributes to that higher goal. And I think that's really the essence of what these cooperation areas is trying to bring about and show. So just finally, if you see the picture here on the slide also, that is from a peri-urban area, lots of individual household connections that have been added one after one, with making that a very expensive cost. Some households in this area are connected to water, but a lot are not. With pooling and having joint planning, for a much lower cost, there could be a branch of pipe to this whole area, bringing mains distribution lines closer to everyone's homes and allowing all households to maybe connect to pipe water supply. And this is something how the financing is channeled, how the planning is done, and how we're able to work together for the bigger goals. So I think there are many challenges on the ground for how to make this happen. And so this was my introduction and background, and really I hope that we will get some further ideas and see some of this great work on the ground also by our partners to showcase how you can come together and do this. Thank you so much, and enjoy the webinar.
Thank you very much, Marianne. I will now pass the floor to the SIWI team, who will present the content of the report. So the floor is yours, I think, Alejandro.
Yes,
you're going to start.
Yes, thank you. My name is Alejandro Jimenez. I'm the director for the Water and Sanitation team here at the SIWI, Stockholm International Water Institute. We're in here side by side to Marianne. And as you know, the report that we are launching today aims to address the institutional fragmentation between water resources management and WASH. And what we try to do here is trying to offer concrete areas of cooperation where both WASH and water resources management stakeholders would benefit from collaborating with each other. And we try to bring it to a practical way, and we try to bring also case studies, and we'll see also some examples as Marianne is mentioning. I'm speaking here on behalf of a big team. So especially I would like to highlight that Panchali Saikia, one of our colleagues, is sick today, unfortunately, and that is why she's not speaking. But it has been a big group within SIWI with other collaborations, as you see in the credits of the reports, and that is like a collaborative effort of all of us towards this goal, which indeed needs to be collaborative and not one single stakeholder can bring it forward. Next slide. Just to say that the rationale might be obvious for many in this call, but it is, as we know, not very much done in practice, right? So just to say that the good water resources management would help ensure the resource and that insufficient quality and quality for delivering good services. And on the other hand, the services side had a big responsibility in terms of protection and conservation of the sources, as well as in terms of efficient service delivery and safely managed water and sanitation, which otherwise would pollute the next users of the water resources. So within this, we have, next slide, please. We have then also wanted to highlight how water is a connector of the multiple agendas and global agendas that we have, from the Sustainable Development Goals, please keep clicking, Jorge, sorry about that, to the Paris Agenda with the climate change elements, both in terms of adaptation and mitigation, as well as from the Sendai framework and the disaster risk reduction components, where, for example, we aim to ensure basic WASH service continuity during disasters, and is very well known by many, and there are now global initiatives on these early warning systems and how they would contribute to minimize damages throughout the drought and flood and other climate-related shocks. Next slide. So actually, I'm coming to the actual content of the report. We structured the content around 5 joint outcomes that you see at the bottom of this slide. And then within each of those outcomes, there were concrete areas of cooperation. As you see, totally 18. And within those areas of cooperation, you will find examples, boxes, and cases. And as we are probably short of time with all of the content that we need to cover, I'll hand over to Robin Ward, who was leading the report from our side at that time, now at UNICEF, to explain a little bit more of these outcome areas and what we mean. Over to you, Robin.
Thank you very much, Alejandro. Could you have the next slide, please, Jorge? Okay, fantastic. So as Alejandro said, yes, there's the framework put forward by the report has these 5 key joint outcome areas where the cooperation is necessary between water resources and WASH actors enable for that outcome to be achieved. So the first one is equitable water resources allocation. So this is very much like looking from the quantity side, the water quantity side. So ensuring that the human right to water and sanitation is upheld, whilst also making sure that upholding that right doesn't infringe on other rights and other water users' needs as well, in terms of the quantity side. So there are plenty of like case studies identified in the report, and also at the end of each section, some opportunities are identified where there are some kind of tangible entry points for cooperation. And just a couple of examples there on the screen. One about, perhaps seems obvious, about WASH engagement more in basin catchment and watershed management, but it's just not always happening. And perhaps, sometimes at the very local level, water users may not, WASH users, I would say, may not have much of a kind of stake or say in the kind of more maybe higher level of formal processes. So that's just one example. Next one, please, Jorge. So there's, of course, many different ways you can slice and dice this, and we tried to, yeah, kind of pick some outcome areas and topics which kind of resonate with people. But of course, there is some overlap across the different outcome areas and cooperation areas because water is so complex and integrated. But on the outcome area 2, it's more about the water kind of quality side of things. So on the sustainable water management in terms of water source protection, pollution prevention, and also wastewater reuse. And one key opportunity here that came through quite strongly on the report is on perhaps that there is not much or not enough like capitalization on the opportunity of wetlands, for example. Of course, wetlands provide like a fantastic, nature-based solution for purifying water before it's used for water supply or other uses. It also provides that kind of, wastewater assimilation and purification process following wastewater. But even better is if that, that wastewater from WASH could be put to a more productive use through, I don't know, through fisheries or biomass production, for example. Next one, please, Jorge. So this outcome is on drought and flood disaster resilience. So this is really from the perspective of ensuring that there's cooperation to, number one is to ensure that there is, particularly under drought, there is sufficient water resource available to ensure WASH service continuity during disasters. So this links to up to the Sendai framework. But whilst ensuring that there is, water availability during a drought, for example, of course, it's still important to take into consideration other water users and needs and make sure that these are not infringed upon. And likewise with flooding, making sure that WASH services are resilient so that if there's flooding, it's not polluting the environment and causing damage in that way. Next one, please. Number 4, climate resilient WASH. So I guess, yeah, the thing to say here is that, of course, there cannot be climate resilient WASH unless there is a much deeper and thorough and robust understanding of water resources and how that's changing under climate change and how that's impacting on WASH services. So business as usual in WASH in that sense, without working together with water resources actors is not really, will not achieve climate resilient WASH in that way. So one key opportunity that kind of arose from the report and is very topical and current, and SIWI have recently launched a report on, the role of water in mitigation. So one opportunity potentially is that, of course, sanitation and wastewater is very much neglected in climate finance. But of course, helping people to progress on that safely managed sanitation chain and progress has both an environmental benefit and also a climate mitigation benefit. So is there a way that water resources and WASH actors can, cooperate more on accessing climate finance? Next one, please. So number 5, yeah, this is more around the cooperating on integrated water resources management and also governance. So very much looking at this fragmentation at different levels all the way up to national level, particularly. So there are, of course, plenty of opportunities here, especially coming under the SDG6 acceleration framework framings of the 5 accelerator areas. But just some key ones that maybe one that stood out was this idea of having, instead of having maybe a joint sector review, which might, be led by one particular ministry, it may or may not call in other water user groups. How about having something more at the interministerial level, still at a practitioner level, hopefully, so that there's some potential for movement there, but calling across, the fragmented different water groups, hydropower, agriculture, irrigation, under a more like cross-sectoral periodic review at country level. Next one, please. Yeah. So yeah, this is just again to show the framework, and this is how the report's structured. Next one, Jorge. And yeah, just in conclusion, as I was mentioning before, with the the climate crisis, the environmental crisis, I mean, one conclusion is, of course, that it's not business as usual, is no longer kind of fit for purpose. And this cooperation is, I mean, it's long overdue and it's, highly necessary. Number two is that, yeah, I mean, you'll hear later, of course, from the case studies, and you'll see in the report that cooperation is, of course, it's possible, it's going on, but it just needs to be kind of scaled up, of course, and we need to learn from these good examples. And very much so that, overcoming fragmentation requires a strong commitment and leadership. And again, I think we'll hear from some of our counterparts and speakers later on that. So next one. Yeah, and so here's the report. I did just briefly check before I started speaking. It is now available on UN Water website. I would, yeah, just to say it is quite a long report, and that owes to the vastness of the, the complexity and the vastness of the topic. But I would urge, like, all water actors, anybody on this call, open the report, pick an outcome area or pick a cooperation area that is of most interest to you. Have a look, see how it relates to your work, and see, how, potentially you could take an action or one or two actions in this area and reach out to your fellow WASH and water resources colleagues. That's it. Back to you, Jorge.
Thank you very much, Colin and Alejandro, for presenting this very rich document with plenty of case studies that I hope will inspire others. Without further delay, I'm going to present you one of the case studies. It's a pre-recorded video from Silvia Gaya, who is UNICEF's regional advisor for East Asia and Pacific. She attended the WASH conference conference in Australia last week, in which there was a long session on cooperation opportunities between water resource management and water supply, sanitation, and hygiene. So she's currently on mission in the Pacific Islands, and she recorded this video with some reflections from the conference, as well as some examples from the region. So I hope the video will work. Just give me a second. There you are. Okay. Okay. I hope you can hear. Can you hear the video?
No, unfortunately not. Okay, should we go on to perhaps the second case study and then circle back to Sylvia later?
Sorry, again?
We have the video here for the.
You cannot hear the video.
No.
Sorry. I don't know what is happening today. Let me try again.
Please share sound. That's what you have.
Yeah. This is usually it should be here. Okay. Let me start again.
It worked in the rehearsal.
Yes, it worked in the rehearsal. It seems. Still not working, right?
No.
Okay, let me start from the beginning.
Yeah.
So again, apologies. I think anything that could Okay, now anything that could go wrong today on the technological side is going wrong. Okay, now should we working?
Silvia Gaia from UNICEF Regional Office, based in Bangkok. And I am really glad to be here with you in the launch of this paper that really links together the work that we are doing or we need to do in the water sector as well as the WASH sector. The publication on the ways to strengthen the cooperation for improved integration across the SDG6 is very relevant for this region at this point in time. We are just finishing the conference that has happened in the last week, during the last week in Brisbane. Is called Water and WASH Futures Conference, has been organized by DFAT, and a lot of partners, a lot of governments, NGOs, academia were present here to discuss about those issues. And of course, the title itself, it says that they are really interested in exploring this correlation or this connection between water and WASH and water resources management as a whole. We did indeed one session in which the publication that you are launching today was already explored by several partners. We had a lot of interest, a lot of people in the room coming from other UN agencies, coming from World Bank, coming from a lot of governments in the region. There were also NGOs, civil society, academia, and there was a very, very good discussion. We had, for example, the government of Fiji highlighting the importance of the institutional arrangements to assure that the share between the different sectors is respected in Fiji. We have also the intervention of the government of Vanuatu in which they were explaining how they really look at the water resources protection as a necessary element before providing any other infrastructure for water supply for the communities, for instance. And also they highlighted the importance of connecting the early warning systems and having early warning systems that are holistic and address the needs of knowing what is happening, what are the projections for both water resources as a resource themselves, but also the services that provide water to the population, water supply. So from this point of view, also we have the intervention of DFAT explaining the importance of, in the context of the water security, explaining the importance on look at the efficiency, look at the efficient use of the resources to assure that every sector has their share, and of course looking at water security as a whole in a holistic manner. They also talk about the importance of partnerships to really reach to this point where the sector makes all the connections and of course works efficiently. The government of Vanuatu explained the elements of the water catchment protection that the communities are doing, and a lot of other interventions in terms of water conservation and water demand management before even starting to reach the point where they qualify for infrastructure development for water supply. So this means that from the starting, before the project starts, they already make the connection with the need to protect the resources and the need to assure that there will be a rational and an efficient use of water for whatever the uses the population will have. There was also a very interesting example from Timor-Leste. Timor-Leste is a country experiencing droughts, very strong droughts exacerbated by climate change, and a lot of springs have dried up. They are putting in place a program to really make barriers to retain and recharge those springs. And once the springs start to yield again or start to reach the normal yield, the water is used for multiple uses. The water is used for people, for drinking and domestic use. The water is used also for production activity because there are micro irrigation and small activities of farming that are done with this water. But it's also very interestingly that this water also brings and serves the restitution of the ecosystems, because once the springs come back to their initial yield and their initial way of functioning, the previous ecosystem slowly comes back and gets restored. All this is on the top of that done through a nature-based solution. So it's please keep tuned, because I hope that very soon we will be able to make a publication on this. So this is to say that in this region, because of the water scarcity that some of the countries are experiencing, because of the water security angle that is very much needed, that really works across all the sector, the issue of connecting water resource management and WASH is very, very relevant. And of course, the partnerships across different actors, different UN agencies, different NGOs that are working in one area on the other are really key to be able to achieve this important goal of really interconnect and assure the preservation of the resources, assure the efficiency, and assure the sustainability, not only for the water and sanitation sector, but of course also for other sectors that also depend importantly from water resources like the agriculture and others. So we just wanted to add a little bit what was the thinking here in Brisbane in this conference. It has been a very interesting session. Everyone expressed a lot of interest to looking at this paper. So really looking forward for a very nice event for you to launch the paper, and that everyone goes and takes this spirit of really working in a much more defragmented way in all the sectors that highly depend on water. Thank you very much, and have a nice day. Bye.
Okay. All right. So after this presentation from Silvia Gaia, we are going to see a presentation from the government of Comoros on the Comoros Water Code. I think Mohamed Abdelrahman is going to present, or Said Mohamed.
Monsieur Mohamed Natur, le député secrétaire général du ministère de l'eau, est-ce que vous êtes là? Quelqu'un de la délégation de Comoros est là?
Yes, if you are unable to speak, but you are in the meeting, please use the chat box to ask to move you as a presenter. Okay, I see in the chat box.
As Jorge, we can we move perhaps to the next presentation while we sort out?
Yes, let's move to the next presentation. Indeed, apologies once again for these technical issues. We are now moving to the third presentation from FAO on the water roadmaps. So Virginie, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Do you, yeah, okay. Now I don't need my slide, just wanted to check with you if that was fine. So thank you very much. Maybe compared to the previous presentation that we heard, my presentation is not really on past example of cooperation, but rather future potential and improved cooperation and integration. So the national water roadmaps are actually the FAO main contribution to the water action agenda for the UN Water Conference in March next month. We propose that it is a country-led process with participative dialogue, reviewing the existing water-related objective and commitments of the different countries that they have already in national development plan, national action plan, and integrated water resource management plan or other key water-related strategy. And from there, prepare action and investment plan to turn this commitment into real concrete results and progress toward the SDG or the water-related indicator of the SDG in order to achieve the Agenda 2030. The idea is that FAO support technically and financially the country to prepare these national water roadmaps, and obviously in cooperation with other UN agencies through UN Water, and in particular through this task force of country-level engagement that has been organizing the event today and presenting this report. So FAO started working on this national roadmap already, and today the first regional workshop on national water roadmap started in Harare in Zimbabwe for the Africa region for 3 days. So that's the idea I wanted to put here to everyone as a proposal for future cooperation. And with that, I just want to conclude that FAO really put water in its highest priority, and this has been reaffirmed recently with water being defined as the theme, the main theme for discussion for FAO conference, which is the highest governing body of FAO. So with I'm trying to make it short to make up for the few technical problems, and I will stop here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I will now pass the floor to Colin from GWP, who is going to present some practical examples of integration between WRM and WASH. I hope you can see the screen now.
Yes, thanks,
so
Jorge.
Colin, yes, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. And I was asked to speak for 7 minutes, but I'm going to try a mission impossible of fitting it into 6 minutes. And it's great that I'm speaking after Virginie and after Sylvia from UNICEF and FAO, because I think it's a great opportunity to draw some interconnections regarding how we integrate, not just at the national level, which is where we're really talking about, but also at the international level, talking about our support to countries. So if you can go on to next, please. I want to talk a little bit about how we are putting this framework into practice. And I think everyone hopefully knows that the SDGs are supposed to be indivisible, so we can't achieve one without achieving all of them. The same goes for, of course, IWRM, which by definition is around land and water in a very connected way, including services and resources. And SDG target 6.5, which is the one I'm working more closely on, it's a process-related target, and it can only be achieved by getting integration, which means that we do need to achieve that target to look at WASH and water resources management. So if we can go to next, please. I want to say a few words about 2 tangible examples from the GWP repertoire. One more, please. Next. So yeah, the first is the Global Water Leadership Program that we have with UNICEF and GWP if we can go to next, please. It's funded by the UK government, DFID, or what was called DFID, sorry, FCDO. And this Global Water Leadership Programme also involves the close collaboration of the Joint Monitoring Programme and Sanitation and Water for All, among other partners. It's touching down in 10 countries. If we can go to the next, please. I'll just say a word or two about the vision, which is very much related to the findings of this study that we're here today to discuss, about having the countries themselves be the leaders, and rather than in these international conferences having the global level people talking about the merits of their support, having the national level representatives become the champions and the leaders who talk to their peers about the merits of this integrated WASH and water resources management perspective, especially in the context of climate resilience. So if we can go to next, we can see that this has been implemented, or this is being implemented in 10 countries, and there are separate tracks on the WASH side, led by UNICEF, and on the water resources management side, led by GWP, to identify the bottlenecks towards integration. Those bottlenecks are then integrated, of course, and there are joint resource mobilization and bottleneck resolution strategies defined by the countries. And of course, the objective of that, focusing on a small number of opportunities, is that there can be learning across the countries and with others facing similar challenges. So if we go to next, we will see some examples of what challenges the countries have identified. And they are, as you would expect, very much related to the legal and policy framework, but also the application of those existing policies and regulations, which is often very weak. There's the lack of political will, but also the mandates that are politically sometimes unaligned, overlapping or underlapping. Just to give you a little bit of flavor as a meta case study of some of the country requirements. Now, if you can go to next, I'll give very briefly an example of a second approach, which is my day job, which we call the SDG6 IWRM support program. And this takes as its starting point the monitoring of SDG 6.5 to help countries to identify their challenges and opportunities for advancing towards the water-related goals of the 2030 agenda, which include but also go beyond SDG 6. In those cases, we help a selected number of countries to come up with an action plan of what opportunities do they face where there's multi-stakeholder commitment to do something significant. And then, of course, to implement those solutions, which when we go back to the next round of monitoring 3 years later, we should then see measurable progress towards the SDG targets. So if we can go to next, please, I'll just give you a very brief flavor of some of those, some examples from the countries. Again, we've supported 15 countries so far in this respect, and we have 5 more ongoing and 25 which should be concluded in the next few years. So just to give you a flavor, some are related again to the legal aspects, more the institutional side, which is how those legal aspects are implemented by institutions involving different stakeholders. Many also focus on the management instruments around how both WASH and WRM data is made available, turned into actionable information. And then, of course, finance is the Achilles heel in many respects. And there are many different financial schemes that countries are focusing on to understand how best to advance towards these multiple targets. So if we can go to next, I think I have some last reflections to hopefully take us out. So, of course, all SDGs are interrelated. We will not achieve any of them unless we really achieve this integration, which is key. Water is a connector, as was mentioned earlier, and much beyond a sectoral approach. So I have a personal crusade to ban the use of the word water sector from my own vocabulary, and I encourage everyone interested to do the same. Water is not a sector in the context of the SDGs. Secondly, we have many existing frameworks, concepts and methodologies, probably far too many. And every day it seems I'm talking with somebody that's coming up with a new one. And I really would encourage everyone to get behind our existing frameworks, the SDGs in particular, and to really focus on how to implement them and not to reinvent the wheel. Thirdly, breaking down the silos requires difficult conversations and trade-offs. Often those conversations need higher level input than just from the water ministries. Political will is key to having these conversations. And fourth, there are many examples, some of which I presented, some have been presented by others, of what good looks like for a particular country. And we encourage those examples to be shared and so that we can stimulate more creative thinking. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Colin. I will now give a second opportunity to the Comoros case study. Whoever is going to present the Comoros case study, I don't know if it's Nasur, please unmute yourself if you can, and let's see if now we can see this case study.
Hello everyone. Can you hear me?
I hear a little bit of echo, but at least I hear someone.
Okay. First of all, we are sorry because we have one moment.
Ask if Jorge can share the PowerPoint.
It seems that today the technology is not on our side.
Yeah. Jorge, I think you have an English version of the PowerPoint presentation. Maybe if you can share that.
No, I don't. I don't. I'm afraid I don't.
Let me resend.
We have an echo.
We have to mute some other speakers.
Hello.
Yeah, we're still hearing an echo.
Yeah, we still have an echo. We don't understand why.
Okay. Shall we try?
Yeah, we can try. It's really off.
Yeah. Okay, I think in the benefit of time, I'm afraid I will have to ask to move to the next point in the agenda. I'm really sorry for not being able to present the new water code from Comoros. We will be sharing in our website the slide, and hopefully we will edit the presentation in the recording. But I would like to move to the next point in the agenda, which is a very brief discussion on to the panelists, to the presenters. I would like to ask all the presenters in 1 minute 2 questions. The first one is, what would be the next steps for implementation of this framework, and what challenges do we need to overcome. So I will start maybe with Marianne, with please just 1 minute, if you can be kind of synthetic summarizing these two questions.
Okay, thank you so much. Now, so I think we need to make sure we get the fabulous Comoros presentation also available very soon. I think that's great. It also maybe also illustrates a little bit what we heard from UNICEF also about the different island states that have been able actually to provide an overview of their area. So maybe it's like the small island states or sometimes large ocean nations are really able and also maybe forced by necessity to make those connections and integrate also all different water uses because they are so geographically interconnected. So I really hope also we will get to see also the experience from Comoros in really managing this. And I think, so it seems like, yes, I think the island nations might be leading the path in some ways. Also, the climate crisis can be seen sometimes as an opportunity in this, as it is also forcing us to tighten the relationships and not waste any resources or opportunities to collaborate. So I think that, so I want to congratulate everybody who's really taking these opportunities and making better use of water resources, ensuring that it is well apportioned among the different uses, and also, of course, the reuse and synergies to make more of the limited resources we have. Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone, for preparing and also for speaking. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marianne. Alejandro, over to you.
Yeah, thank you. I think we are very short of time, but I would just say that what we need to do is to use these examples as well as many more that can be found in the report by areas of your interest, depending on what is your domain of work in water, and try to see how you can really we can really move this integration towards SDG6 and beyond into practical actions in the ground. So I leave it there, and over to you, Jorge.
Thank you. Virginie?
Thank you. I just wanted to reiterate this call for cooperation, especially between UN agency. I think this task force on UN water is at country level engagement is really good for that. So I just want to reiterate that call, and you're welcome to contact us if you want to be involved in this national water roadmap process. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Colin?
Yeah, thank you, Jorge, for asking these two very difficult questions to summarize in any time, but let alone 1 minute. My first thought would be to read the report. Of course, I think it's a mine of information. And as you say, there are bits that can be cherry picked by different users. The other thing I think we really need to get to is a model of radical collaboration at all levels, going beyond our business as usual mode of collaboration, where it's often by convenience, but really rethinking how we collaborate to break down those institutional silos, again, at the national, regional and international level. High-level political leadership is very much needed by heads of states, prime ministers, finance ministers, and so on. And the last thought is just to use the 2023 conference next month and the Water Action Agenda in particular to formalize commitments towards that integration, which then gives us a clearer pathway to collaborate in the future. Thanks.
Thank you, Colin. Okay, without further delay, I would like to pass the floor now to Farai Tunhuma, who is our senior advisor at the UNICEF headquarters, for the closing remarks. Farai, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you very much, colleagues, and really thank you to the UN Water Partnership, which has allowed us to come up with this fantastic report. I think it's really a vision of the future that we see for SDG6. Our aspirations to achieve it in 2030 and what will become of the different elements of SDG6 beyond 2030. in practice, we've really seen very distinct lines between the domestic needs, water for human consumption or human economic needs, as well as the environmental needs. And from this, we've really separated water resources management, as well as what we know as WASH, water sanitation and hygiene, and really made these two distinct sectors with different policy implementation tracks. And from the conversation today, I picked up a few nuggets of wisdom. Radical collaboration, for instance, was one of them, or the fact that we cannot achieve part of SDG6 and say we have achieved SDG6. So we really need to change the way that we work. We really need to look at our governance systems, the infrastructure that we put in place, our expertise, the scope that we work with, whether it's regional, local, global level, and try to really bring together this collaboration, complementarity, and synergies across what we know as water resources management and water sanitation and hygiene. There's been very good examples of how to do this. The report also has many examples of how we can achieve this. And we really need to work together right across the institutions. And I think today is already a good show of that, where we see the different UN agencies coming together and saying, what is my stake and how can I make this achievement of SDG6 much more achievable? So as we prepare for the UN Water Conference this March, a few days away now, what we are calling a watershed moment for all who work on SDG6, we really want to be addressing a lot of the institutional fragmentation and really considering how we work together across water resources management, WASH, and of course the other sectors that water also influences, and so that we can make a difference. I hope that you'll be able to read this report. We hope that water practitioners, policymakers will also be able to read this, that we hope that we overcome fragmentation across the SDG6 subsectors, and that we really put in place that transformative shift towards integrated and holistic approaches for us to address the water crisis, as well as for us to advance the global agenda that we have, and of course achieving SDG 6. So we hope that in the coming weeks, months, years, as we will move towards 2030 and beyond, we will really work towards these synergies, work around the strategic opportunities for cooperation, really look at some of the pragmatic examples that we have from the report, and put in place responses that will be able to work through some of the institutional complexities that we see, so that we achieve much more equitable and effective policy outcomes. I think for me, as a last word, it's just really to remind everyone of the 5 potential areas where we can cooperate and have joint outcomes. And these are certainly around equitable water resources allocation, sustainable water management, drought and flood disaster resilience, climate resilient WASH, and lastly, integrated water resources management. And as we go through our day-to-day work, I am sure we will be able to really leverage these opportunities that this report identifies, so that our work is much more impactful in the field. Colleagues, I would like to thank you for your participation in this session. And I really hope we read this report, but not only read it, but put it into practice in the field. Over back to you, Jorge, and many thanks, colleagues.
Thank you very much, Farai. Thank you very much to all speakers, to all participants that allocated 1 hour of the time in their busy agendas for attending here today. I hope you found the session interesting despite the technical difficulties. And just one last message. I hope we all leave this session with a strong commitment to be connectors, to break these silos in our jobs, in our roles, in our countries, and to be part of the change that the sector needs. I wish all of you a very good rest of the day, and I hope to see you soon. Thank you very much.
Going to share this presentation. My name is Assad. I'm a collaborator of the third Deputy Secretary General, Said Mohamed Nasser. He's Deputy Secretary General of Ministry of Water in Comoros. He couldn't be able to make the presentation in English, so he allowed me. It's on behalf of his name that I'm doing this. So welcome to this presentation. We're going to talk about the integration of IWRM and WASH in the new water code in Comoros. We're going to this presentation this presentation in 4 points. The first one, we'll talk briefly about the water in the sector of water in Comoros, kind of overview. The second point is going to be the presentation of the new water code in Comoros. The third one will be about integration of IWRM and WASH in the Comorian water code. And the last point will be about perspectives for strengthening IWRM WASH integration in the new water regulation. Let's go to the first point. Overview of the water sector in Comoros. The Union of Comoros is part of the small island developing states located off the eastern coast of Africa, north of the Mozambique Channel, with a land area of the 3 islands of 1,862 kilometers square. The capital of Union of Comoros is Moroni. So just for your information, we'll talk about Comoros, which is 4 islands with the last one, Mayotte, in French administration. So don't be surprised if we just talk about the 3 ones, because it's the 3 who run into Comorian administration. The brief overview of the water sector in Comoros. The second point will be the water sector in Comoros, is composed of 3 sources of supply. Surface water is almost non-existent in the island of Grand Comore due to the island's geological nature, but we can have surface water in the 2 others islands, which is Anjouan and Moheli. Groundwater is present in the center and south of Grand Comore. We can call Grand Comore with another name. Sometimes we use Ngazija to say Grand Comore. And the third point, when rainwater collection is present on all 3 islands with an average annual potential of 1.5 meter cube and meter square of catchment area, which can reach 4.8 meter cube meter square in the southwest of Ngazija, which is Grand Comore. The water sector is vulnerable due to low rainfall in certain regions, negative impact of human activities, I mean pollution from domestic, I mean overexploitation, deforestation in watersheds. Let's go to the other point. We're still on the same point, an overview of the water sector in Comoros. The water sector is vulnerable due to, again, traditional practices that generate biological contamination, poor waste management, poor maintenance of water infrastructure, natural disasters such as tsunami or volcanic eruptions, salinization of wells due to water rise, and community conflicts. Community for information conflicts, it's something that bring distractions of structures. The second point will concern the presentation of the new water code in Comoros. In order to address the vulnerability of the various components of the Comorian water sector, the country has adopted a new water code after a long participatory process of consultations that received contribution from all stakeholders in the water sector, state structures, private sector, and civil society. The new water code was adopted on December 28, 2020, and then promulgated by presidential decree on January 30, 2021. This new law on the water code is innovative in its provisions. The condition for effective implementation of integrated water resources management and their impact on natural resources and ecosystem services, and the public, parapublic, and private actors involved in water resources management, as well as their respective roles. Financing option for the water sector for knowledge, planning, use, and protection of water resources. Other point, the obligation to obtain prior authorization for any form of exploitation of water resources, regardless of their use and means. The water police, which is now competent to punish waste, anarchic use of water, any behavior likely to cause pollution of resources, and any act that could compromise the sustainable and healthy management of water resources. The various instruments in the last point and tools for integrated water resources management. These include planning and management instruments, master plans, water management plans, sustainable financing, prevention and repression of offenses, as well as monitoring and evaluation. Let's talk about the third point. The third point of this presentation will be about integration of IWRM and WASH in the Comorian Water Code. In order to contribute to the achievement of the SDG6 in Comoros, clean water and sanitation, the new Comorian Water Code places particular emphasis on integrating GIR, which is the French way to say IWRM, principles and WASH guiding principles. Thus, the new water code proposes integrated water resources management, contributing to the achievement of sustainable development goals, including the reconciliation of economic development, equity, environmental protection, and the responsibility of the state to transmit quality ecosystem to future Comorian generations. Regimes and conditions for various use of water resources. And the last point here in this slide, avenues for financing the water sector for knowledge, planning, utilization, and protection of the water resources. Let's continue about this, the point 3, integration of GIR and WASH in the water code. Consideration given to strengthening all water resources governance functions through the clarification of roles and responsibilities of different actors and institutions involved in managing these resources, as well as the rights of population in terms of water and sanitation, including the right to water and sanitation. Rights and obligation of population regarding water and sanitation, inclusion of women, youth, and other vulnerable groups in decision-making processes at all levels, in activities to protect and develop water resources, and in the management of hydraulic and sanitation infrastructure. The last point about this presentation will be about the perspectives for strengthening GIR WASH integration in the new water regulation.